is up, everybody? Ben from Blockbuster Mentality here once again. Hope everyone's doing well. Had a great week, and appreciate you tuning in for this week's show. We have very talented actress Victoria Gordon on the show. She's promoting her pilot season. It's a comedy anthology miniseries online. You can check it out on YouTube. It's 5 sitcom pilots ranging from broad multi-camera comedy to more intimate dramedy. These pilots were produced as pilot season, a 5-part miniseries filmed entirely over Zoom. So taking advantage of the situation we're in, that's what she did. She wrote in it, starred in it, and everything like that. So we talk a lot about that, and the movie she chose to talk about is Troop Beverly Hills with Shelley Long. I get into how I was a little bit surprised by that choice. This was my first viewing. It's apparently a cult classic now, so learn something new every day. But no, it was great chatting with her. Make sure you're subscribed to us on iTunes, rate, review us. We're climbing up those charts because of your ratings and reviews and your downloads and your listens, so please continue to do that. If you haven't done so already, we'd really appreciate it. But yeah, we've got a lot of great shows coming up and have been having a lot of fun on the show. And let's keep it going, folks. Let's keep it going. You guys, the charts were doing quite well last week into this week, so let's keep it going. Let's keep it going. Got a lot of guests lined up, and I'm excited for you guys all to hear. But anyways, here's my chat with Victoria Gordon on Troop Beverly Hills. You're in California, right?
Yes.
Yeah, and you always been a California.
That I have.
Californian.
I am a true and I talk like that too when I'm talking about directions.
Yeah.
Yes, no, it's like, oh, I took this to that. I've been to like events where that's literally how everyone talks. Like if you arrive at a wedding and it's like, I remember arriving at a wedding once, it was in a very weird place, and everyone was like, well, how did you get here? It's like, I took this to this to this. Yeah, that's how we really talk.
No, I'm a East Coast guy. So why is that? Why do you guys always, what you guys, what is it about that? About the roads? And you take the 40, is it 405, 409?
405, which is
yes.
Yes, there's the 405. I spend a lot of time on the 405. I think it emerged from the fact that LA is like really spread out. A lot of cities, are like not that, obviously not that way. When you look at New York, it's very tall. You look at LA, it's very wide. So in order to get everywhere, you have to take all these different freeways and, side streets and all that. It's just the virtue of how our city is planned or not planned, depending on how you look at it.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm in Tampa, Florida. So yeah, it's just a transplant city. So everyone's from everywhere else. And,
I was literally just saying this morning. So a couple of years ago, I had a TV show that was on local TV in Tampa. And I went down to Tampa to do some press for it. And I stayed at the Meridian, which is an old courthouse that is now a hotel.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
I love Tampa. I was talking because I have a friend who's moving to Florida. And I said, well, geez, if I were moving to Florida, I'd be looking at Tampa. So
yeah. Yeah, Tampa's, it's a cool area. If you gotta love the heat and the beach and stuff if you want to live here full time, that's for sure. And I don't, but I'm still here, But no, I'm glad you like it. That's great. Now you come from a line of showbiz, right? I mean, I know your grandfather was a writer, and other family members too. Can you talk about that a little bit?
Sure. So in my dad's family, which is what you're thinking of, my grandfather was a TV comedy writer. He worked for about 40 straight TV seasons before he retired, which is very unique. He didn't have a season off.
Wow.
And he worked for shows like Jack Benny, and all the way to his last show was really 227, which is a great little sitcom from the late 80s, early 90s. And so sorry about my little guy, Jack.
Come on, Jack. You're interrupting.
Funny thing about Jack is he's a 12-pound Shih Tzu, and he thinks he's like a 40-pound. I have no idea what, but truly he will bark at other dogs. There are these 2 dogs that we see all the time, these big like Goldens, and he barks at them like he's gonna eat them, and they're like, we don't care. Yeah. Like nice try, little dog. You know, but that's Jack. Anyway,
he's got a Napoleon complex.
He
Yeah.
does. And it's kind of cute. You know, there are these dogs in our neighborhood that we see all the time where they have a mix of big and little. They have like 8 dogs, and they have a mix of big and little dogs. And I love seeing how the little dogs just bark like crazy and the big dogs just stand next to them like, yeah, listen to them. I mean, it's funny how these dogs work. And my
Yeah.
dog is a character. He has such a quirky personality. And yeah, he really thinks he's gonna protect
Yeah.
all of them. I have no idea what, but it's Jack's house. I'm just a guest.
Yeah.
But anyway, so yeah, my grandfather was a TV comedy writer, and he had a great career, and he won 3 Emmys. So when I was a kid, I used to see Emmys in his house, and that was very inspiring because I knew that that meant excellence. And my dad worked in TV as well. He was a TV director for the majority of his career. He worked on shows like Solid Gold, and America's Funniest Home Videos. And on
Oh.
my mom's side, my great uncle, who was like another grandfather to me, was a symphony conductor. And what was cool about his orchestra was it was really the first, at least in California, if not in the country, young people's orchestra. It was founded in 1937. So he was very ahead of his time. And because he was working with young people, he would get celebrities to come to his concerts. So the story my mom always tells, just as an example, is when she was about 6 years old, he said, "Who do you want to come to the concert?" And she said, Annette Funicello. And he made that happen because he could literally call up different publicists and say,
Yeah.
"Please come do this." And Annette came. My mom thought that was the coolest thing ever. So I grew up with a lot of people around the business, but I think what's really important about what I grew up with is that I saw that it wasn't all glamorous. Not everything that my family experienced or showed me was a Hollywood premiere or a fancy event. I saw the behind the scenes a lot too. And I saw that it's not always big parties and fancy clothes. It's a lot of work and a lot of people doing a lot to make those few people shine. So I had
Yeah.
a really clear sense of what I was getting into.
Right. Yeah, and it's interesting too because you have different aspects of show business. You have the TV side, and then you have orchestra, which is totally a separate entity, really. And it seems like, I mean, from what I've read and what I've seen, it seems like you kind of are meshed in kind of all of that with what you're doing. Is that, I mean, am I right to assume that, or was it? My son. See, I got dogs coming in too. But it's a human kid. Um, is it kind of an osmosis thing that you kind of just absorbed it all?
Well, I think growing up with both sets of family nearby, I mean, I can point like each one was within a mile of my house and not even. So I grew up with all of my grandparents nearby and all of their influences nearby. And I think the main things that I saw beyond just, the music and the writing and all that was showmanship and a sense of, naturally performing. I think everyone in my family had a very good sense, a good command of how to appear before an audience or on camera, how to present themselves. And I think I learned that first. And then I applied that to what I had as my own talents. And in that case, I mean, I began playing the violin when I was 4. I began singing when I was like 11
Oh
or
wow.
12, something like that. I was always acting from the time I was a little kid. I did drama camp and stuff. And I really didn't get into the writing until my teen years because I was under the impression that I was a bad writer. So it took me a long time to be like, wait, no, I have ideas. You don't have to be perfect to write. You can just write.
Right.
Then to go from that to, no, wait, actually, my ideas are good and people like what I'm writing. I don't know how I got it in my head that I was a bad writer. So, I mean, it's been kind of a progression, but it all started from that base of showmanship and being good on camera or on stage.
Yeah. So was that just like sort of you said you don't know where it came from, but you had an idea in your head that you were not a good writer. Was that just an insecurity type thing? Like just, it's not good. It's, I'm doing it, so it can't be good type of thing.
I think, okay, well, it's worth noting that I am a millennial and I came of age with the internet. So, like, when I was in second grade, I won a prize in school, actually, 2 prizes in school for my writing. So, like, I was clearly on that track. And I kind of wanted to be a novelist when I was a kid because I was
Oh.
obsessed with Meg Cabot, the author of the Princess Diaries books. And I thought I might go in that direction. But then I think there was definitely a period there as a, tween girl in, the early days of MySpace and all that, where let's be honest, the internet was a very interesting place to be a tween girl in the early days of MySpace. There was a lot of just stuff I wouldn't necessarily encourage anyone to read. Um,
Yeah.
and I think I felt like, oh, geez, I'm just another one of these girls writing, stuff online. I'm not any good. And I had a teacher who may have accidentally kind of affirmed that for me. And
Oh.
I mean, I think the most important thing, any teachers who are listening, the most important thing you can do is not especially at like the middle and high school level, get in the way of kids' passions. If kids are passionate about something, it's not worth telling them they're not good at it unless they're doing something dangerous. I mean, like if I were saying I'm not going to go to college, I'm going to quit school and I'm going to make a living as a writer full time at 17. Yeah, don't let me do that. Like that's the time when
Right.
I step back. But when I'm saying, I'm really passionate about writing and this is where I want to explore stuff, don't hold anyone back from that. Let kids explore that because you never know what you're going to find. And
Right. And,
I got a little too seriously. So I think that's part of it too.
yeah, no, I can see that, and it's I think it's about being being critical but constructively. Like I think that's okay. It's but if that's really what they want to do, I think you have to be honest and be upfront with the kid, like saying like, it's not good enough yet, but keep working at it. Like you don't just give them that discouragement just to stop completely just because no, this isn't good when you're 12 years old, so it's not going to work out for you.
To be fair, she was really looking at my work as a writer of prose, not as a
Right.
writer of scripts. And I will say that I think that once I got into the concept of script writing and writing to be spoken instead of to be read, I found a place for myself because one of my biggest strengths as a writer, and I can say this because I've spent enough time honing my skills, is that I write very distinct characters with their own voices. And I think there is something to be said for being able to put that out there as something that people will hear as opposed to something people will read. And
Sure.
she may have just not been able to look. She was teaching high school. Like I don't know that
Right.
she
Yeah.
really was the best literary critic, but she was my literary critic at the moment. So I
Right.
think that's for any kids who are listening. Your high school teachers don't know everything. They know a lot of things and they can be wonderful people, but they should not be the determining factor in major life decisions.
Exactly. Yep. There you have it. You just put that on a quote somewhere and abide by that. Boom. We have it. Now, what can you tell me about pilot season? You got this mini web series. Is it? What would you call it? A web series? Well, you're going to talk about it. You got this. It started because of the pandemic. Have you always had this idea? Like, walk me through this a little.
Well, I've been keeping a line a day journal for the last 2.5 years, and I went through an entry from about a year ago today, and it said, I just realized I will be here until the fall of 2021. And
Oh,
that feeling of panic, I mean, I think, because I remember reading about a year ago at this time that we'd get a vaccine by like September of this year. And I was under the impression that we were pretty much going to be in and out of lockdowns, but predominantly in lockdowns until that happened. And I like panicked. Like I just thought, I don't know what I'm going to do. And I had been doing online singing shows at that point, but I said, these are amazing, but exhausting because my online singing shows, I would do a different show every other week. So I would
oh
literally
wow.
get all new music every other week. I did this for 5 months. It was a lot of work.
Yeah.
And so what I decided to do was step back from that. And I had these pilot scripts that I had written at different times. And I thought, we can't make them like go into a studio and film them, but we all are getting the hang of this Zoom thing and we can create little transitions between them so they don't just look like Zoom rooms. And that's what we wound up doing. So I was able to take 5 pilots. Each one is the pilot for a different series, and they're all a little different. They range from like really broad family comedy that's like your satirical family sitcom all the way to this very intimate dramedy that I keep comparing to Better Things, the Pamela Adlon show. And each one has kind of a different focus, obviously different characters, different story, different world that it's building, but they all kind of fall into my brand of humor. And they're each a half hour. So it was a really interesting experience to create TV this way because I think we're going to see more of that. I think, especially when we start seeing media about the pandemic, we're going to see a lot more Zoom as the medium to put it out there.
Right.
And I felt like I was kind of ahead of the curve, and it was a fun thing to do too.
Yeah, it's awesome that you found a way to be creative, and it's to me, what I take from that, you said, people are getting used to Zoom. It's crazy just how the new norm changes, your normal changes. Because I used to, me and I call him my estranged co-host, even though he joins still sometimes, but he, we would always do it in person. And then when, even before the pandemic, sometimes he wouldn't, feel like driving over. So we would be like, you want to try Skyping it maybe? Because that was when it was Skype was the big thing, not Zoom. And then, Zoom came along with the pandemic, but it was like those shows were so different and they were so like awkward. Like we're not in person, but it's just, now that we're on Zoom, it's just like, it's crazy how this is just normal now. Like, it's like, we're going to do a show, it's on Zoom and, that's it. It's just, insane to me just how normals change, and you might have changed, how TV shows are now, like you said. So, and
No,
that's great.
it's nuts. I was about a year ago, a little over a year ago, before the pandemic really started. I was talking to a woman named Shoshana Greenberg, who does the Scene to Song podcast, and I appeared on her show. And I was her first non-local guest. So I think we filmed like early March. And she was like, I guess we could try Skype. And I said, okay, whatever, that works for me. And I went on her show. She does an end of year like recap show where she brings back everyone who was on the show and we have like a big discussion. And she was like, Victoria, when you and I did that interview on Skype and it was like so confusing and difficult, I was not expecting that by the end of the year I was going to be an expert. Like that was my training ground for these
Right.
interviews. And now I want to go back on her show. We've been talking about it because I would love to go on and try it now that she's a pro and I'm a pro, because we were both kind of flailing around. I don't know how we did it. I don't know how we did it, but now I think if we did it, we'd be like experts.
Yeah, it's like you get used to the delay. Like everyone knows there might be a little delay, so you just go with it, and it's whereas before it was just like you talk, no, I talk, no, you talk. It's so weird like that. But no, it's great, and it's it looks like you got a lot of people to do those shows for the pilot season. How many different actors did you have?
There were 60 roles and we had
60.
43 actors. And
Wow.
what I appreciated was that mostly friends were the ones who did multiple roles, people I already knew. But then like there was an incident right off the bat where somebody dropped out. Like at the last minute, she's like, I just can't do it. And there was a girl that I had met. I can say girl because she's under 18. Through another person who was in the show. And I was like, hey, would you mind just coming in and doing this? You don't leave your house, just sit in your room. She's like, yeah, why not? So she did it a second time. Or like I had a guy who dropped out later in the show and a guy that I had used earlier. I was like, I could just picture you reading this part. So he said, yeah, okay, fine, I'll do it. So we had a little bit of continuity in that regard, even though there's no continuity between the stories. And then we also had, every episode was completely different in that regard, but it was nice to have
Right.
faces every week too, because I could say like, okay, well, you remember when you were in this episode last week that we had no idea how to do this. And now we are totally on top of it. It was just fun to have repeat customers, if you will.
What did you have anyone that's never done any sort of acting before that probably wouldn't have done it with Zoom, or no? Or
Okay,
wouldn't have done it if it wasn't for Zoom, I should say.
this isn't quite Zoom, but I did
Well,
actually
yeah, sorry.
44th act. No, I don't mean that. This person didn't quite do it on Zoom, but I did have a 44th actor. So my sister's boyfriend of 2 years, I got to shout out Kyle here. Kyle has been incredible this entire pandemic because he's had to put up with my entire family's various needs when it comes to, quarantining and all that. And he has been so respectful. Love Kyle. My sister would edit at his place because it was quiet and she could spend time with her boyfriend. So she took all the shows over there, and I would get calls from him or texts from him where he'd be like quoting lines from my shows to me. He was paying such close attention to her editing, and he really was enjoying himself. And in the last episode, we needed someone to yell "shut up," like off screen, just yell "shut up." And Natalie says, "Kyle, could you just do me a favor? I need someone to yell "shut up." Could you just like yell "shut up"? So the first time he does it, he's like "shut up," and Natalie's like, "No, you need to yell "shut up" like you're like on the street and someone's screaming." And he said, I don't want to be mean. Like, I don't want to do that. And she says, Kyle, it's acting. You're not being mean. Please just yell, shut up. And so he thinks about it for a minute. He realizes, okay, it's just acting. And he yells, shut up!
Man, he had to do multiple takes for his line he didn't even know he was going to have. And
And what's even funnier is he was so good at it that his parents were watching anyway because they were just extremely supportive. And they called Natalie, my sister, after they saw it, and like, where was Kyle? What did Kyle do? And she's like, oh, you got to go back and hear the shot. They were shocked that came out of their kid.
right. That's awesome. Oh man, yeah, that's great. That he got a part in it. He's especially these quoting lines to you. That's hilarious. Is there anything else you're working on that you wanted to talk about, or are we good in that space? You want to move on to the movie?
I would love to talk about it.
Well, this is interesting because when I was talking to your publicist, and she said you said Troop Beverly Hills, and it took me back for a minute. I was like, wait, what? So it's a very interesting choice, but I love it because, first of all, this is my first time seeing Troop Beverly Hills.
Oh,
Yep. Yep. So I love watching, a movie I've never seen before, which is great. But my first question to you, I meant to segue like this. I meant to say, have you ever met Shelley Long?
No, actually, now
Okay.
that you mention it. No, I was at an event when Troop Beverly Hills turned, I want to say, no, it just turned 30. So it must have been
Yeah.
25. It must have been 25. And Shelley Long was there. And she was holding this little dog, like this maybe 6 pound dog in her arms, like this the whole time she was talking. But I never actually met.
Okay.
But no, I
Yeah.
did. Yes, that I did see that. I guess that was the 25th anniversary.
Okay, so you saw her, from
From a
afar.
little
So
distance,
yeah,
yes.
oh, that's great. But so yeah, the Troop Beverly Hills from 1989, with starring obviously Shelley Long, directed by Jeff Canoe. Do you know how to say? Is that
That
right?
sounds right, but then watch
Yeah,
he'll tell you, and he'll be like, nope, that's not it, and you'll be like,
yeah.
okay, you noticed.
Exactly. I did my best. So first of all, I mean, why this movie? Why'd you pick this movie?
Okay, well, this is where I get to show my little bit of like background stuff. I am from Beverly Hills. I was born and raised in Beverly Hills, California. And at the 25th anniversary event, I discovered that the movie was inspired by a true Girl Scout troop. And it was the Girl Scout troop I was a member of years later. So I
Wow.
was actually in Troop Beverly Hills. And
Wow.
I just love this movie. I think it is such a great send up of late 80s culture, what people think Beverly Hills is like, rich people. And I will tell you, there is no better sequence in my mind for history of this community than that Rodeo Drive scene
So,
where you see Rodeo in the 80s.
So you have like, wow. So this is your movie. Wow, that is incredible. I'm speechless right now. That's that's crazy. So I mean, so you can totally relate to this movie a lot in multiple ways. The Beverly Hills side, but also the Girl Scout side, or the troop side, whatever. Is it because this is just a spoof off of
Oh,
Girl Scouts, right? Because they probably
oh,
couldn't use the name, I assume.
no, they were the Wilderness Girls.
Oh, they
And
were.
no, in the movie, they're the
Oh,
Wilderness
okay. I was gonna say
Girls,
like,
Girl Scouts.
yeah,
No, they're the
it,
Wilderness Girls.
yeah. They're the Wilderness Girls, but obviously,
Yeah,
Girl Scout. Yeah. So,
it's the same one.
yeah. But yeah. I mean, that's insane. So you got both sides of it. And yeah. I mean, it's definitely an '80s movie. You can tell. It's got first of all, classic one-liners, and it's it. Even the movies I love in the '80s, it's got cheesiness in it, which is part of the reason we like these movies. When were you first introduced to this movie?
Oh my gosh. I'm on the youngest end. My sister and I are the youngest of our generation of cousins. So growing up, all of the older cousins would watch stuff like this because they were just not quite at the age where they wanted the like really intense stuff, but not quite young enough that they were only interested in princess movies. So this was like a middle ground. And I would say I probably don't remember the first time I watched it, but I know by the time I was like 4 or 5, I was quoting lines from the movie. So
Wow, that's hilarious. What's quote a line from it right now?
well,
Boom.
it's like in high school, my friends and I used to say to each other, we thought it was the funniest insult, or not insult, but just funniest line. That frosts my cookies. Which she yells in the middle of, she's covered in mud. She's like miserable. And like at the end of her robe, Shelley Longstreet, she yells, that frosts my cookies. And we're just like, that is the nicest way of saying what you're thinking. And
Right.
that was good.
Oh man, yeah. There was, like I said, like again, this was my first watch, and yeah, I was catching those one-liners here and there, and I was just like, man, I can't believe I've never seen this before, because I'm always quoting '80s movies and everything. So yeah, I mean, it follows a divorcee who's kind of living that Hollywood life, who's spending his money, spending his credit cards. Have you do you know a Phyllis Neffler? Have you met
Oh,
many Phyllis Nefflers?
oh yeah. I have for sure met Phyllis's. And they're a real thing. I mean,
Yeah.
I think that they're definitely a bit of a stereotype, but the stereotype exists for a reason.
Right.
And I do know women like that. So she's very much a kind of character that when I watch the movie, I'm like, yep, I can name 3 or 4 women who would do exactly that or who have done things like that. So for sure.
Yeah. Oh man, yeah, it's yeah, because I mean, she's spending his money, trying to get even discounts on it, even though she's spending his money. She's like, I think there are beads missing from this
Oh yeah,
dress.
just think of Pete. I'm like, really? The costumes in that movie are, for that time in particular, unparalleled because it's just like a fashion show the whole way through.
Right. Yeah. It's sorry. Yeah. I can't. I got the giggles now. Because Shelley Long does that to me. You got Craig T. Nelson playing her husband, her divorcee husband, who I that's what I was gonna say. So the 5,000, it was supposed to be like a $5,600 dress, and she gets it down to 5,000. Like,
Yeah.
even for California, like, holy crap, like that's just insane to me. Even especially for 1989, like, holy crap. But
Well, I know, and I mean that's just one thing she buys on this
yeah,
shopping spree. I mean, this woman has no sense of like self-control when it comes to spending. And I think one of the jokes that the Betty Thomas character makes a lot is that she has absolutely no regard for a dollar at all.
right.
I mean, I just can't even fathom that.
Yeah, it's insane. Yeah, especially that time, and yeah, for just a piece of clothing, it's insane. So speaking of her character, as you said, Betty Thomas's character, we have oh, I just had her name. What's her name in the movie? What was it?
Velda, that's her name.
Velda, thank you, Velda, and I mean, she right away is not a big fan of Shelley Long's. I go in between saying the actor and the character, so just bear with me. She is constantly going back and forth, and it's just so interesting because I mean, she tries to sabotage everything, and doesn't, but Shelley Long always ends up on top. It's always, her, defeating the system, defeating everything about it. But, at first Shelley Long kind of comes off as, not a certainly likable character, just because she's, off spending her husband's money. She's just kind of like, doesn't have any responsibilities. But, at first she sort of does this Girl Scout thing, the wilderness tribe, the wilderness
No lawsuit here.
I know, right? She starts off, with that is, just to kind of try to prove to her husband that I can do other things, but the story kind of goes along, and she actually grows an attachment with these girls. So I found that to be more inspiring part of this movie, and kind of more character development is definitely earned in this movie, I felt. So I mean, what are your thoughts initially on Phyllis? Like, are we not are we just, she's just a spoiled brat? Like, what are your initial thoughts on her when we first see her? I know you've seen this movie 100 times, but this is my first time.
Yeah, well, no, I think the thing that I didn't understand until I got a little older about Phyllis is really encapsulated in that first scene between Shelley Long and Craig T. Nelson, which is she doesn't know what she's doing. Like, she doesn't have a direction with her life. Like, her purpose is kind of to wear pretty clothes and go buy more of them. And she's never kept up with anything she's committed to. That's the big thing, is every time she makes a commitment, she bails on it. So she wants to prove that she can keep up with a commitment, and she figures she'll take the easy road. Like, in one scene, she takes the girls camping, and I mean, that was like glamping before glamping. She has the tent rental company set up all the tents, and Abbey Rents, which they referenced in the movie, was a real company here in Beverly Hills. And so they set up all the tents, and when their campsite gets rained out, she takes them to a bungalow at the Beverly Hills Hotel. It's like she's determined to sort of make it work Phyllis style. And at first you think, okay, she's gonna bail. She's gonna give up. But eventually she learns how to take Phyllis style and combine it with something workable in the real world, because she loves these girls. And as a side note, those girls, Kelly Martin was one of the girls.
Yep.
Jen Lewis was one of the girls. Carla Gugino, like, that cast was incredible.
Yeah, and even I think Tori Spelling was in there. She's there's definitely a lot of future talent in this movie, which it was interesting to see now with these older eyes. But yeah, I mean, it's great to see. I love that. Yeah, when she's they're supposed to be camping and they end up at the hotel, and it's just then
She both told it, and she's like, "That campsite you told me about has rain, and there are bugs there." Just like, it's camping, lady.
yeah.
Like,
Yeah, then she says something about we're roughing it. We only have one bathroom with like 9 girls. Like, of course we're roughing it. Like that's her roughing it is just going with one bathroom with multiple people, and
I
it's
mean,
just
the snark in that film as a kid just flew over my head because I didn't get that.
right.
I was like, okay, they've got one bathroom, cool. And this is not particularly odd to me. And then as an adult, I'm like, that is one of the funniest lines in that. Or when she's with the girls that telling scary stories, and her scary stories that she got perm, the color she wanted from her highlights. I mean, it's just like it's such clever comedy that I feel like it's one of those movies that you can show to a kid and they'll enjoy it. And you show it to an adult and be like, oh my god, that was funny.
Right. Like starts off the story with like he touched me with his cold hands, and they're like, oh, like,
He permed me.
It's like, yeah, that is quite terrifying. That is oh man, it was interesting seeing Craig T. Nelson in this type of role for me because I'm used to seeing him. Well, first of all, I was just getting Incredibles the whole time he talked because obviously he did the voice of Mr. Incredible, perhaps. At this point, his most famous role probably. He was Coach in the old sitcom Coach, but yeah, it was interesting. I don't know why it was interesting seeing him as kind of that husband who just wants to kind of having a midlife crisis and wants to just go off with the the daughter initially said she was a realtor and everything, but this movie, I mean, it seems like it's more of a cult following at this point. I mean, it seems like you obviously grew up with it, but I hear it's now like a cult movie because it didn't necessarily do too well with critics and everything. With which 80s comedy, I mean, typically that's the case, but it has a cult following. It's got a lot of feminism involved in this movie. Do you know anything about this cult following?
Oh, I definitely think that girls of a certain age and women, well, obviously we're not women, but women of a certain age grew up with this movie. I was in some women's organization a few years ago, and we were doing different like team building activities. And one team decided for their team building activity they were going to dress up as the Red Feathers, the rival Girl Scout.
Yeah, right.
And I mean, everyone immediately knew who they were the minute we saw them. We were all freaking out. Or like, I heard Kim Kardashian for one of her children had a Troop Beverly Hills themed baby shower. So I think there's definitely like a culture around this film for young women for whom it was a childhood film. And in that case, Kim was born in like 81. So yeah, she was a little girl when it came out. It would have had a big impact. And I think the other one like that, although it's about 10 years later, is The Parent Trap with Lindsay Lohan, which I've also seen 1.5 million times. And I don't know if kids today have seen it as much, but when I was a kid, every girl saw The Parent Trap on repeat. So I think there are movies like that that have these sort of little girl audiences. And when the girl audience grows up and becomes a woman audience, they either embrace that film or they decide, oh my God, what were we thinking? And
sure.
In the case of True Beverly Hills, I think we realized, oh my God, we were actually sleeping on just how funny it was. We didn't know it as kids. So that's where I think the cult following comes from, is girls who grew up seeing the movie.
Yeah, definitely. Girls growing, and it seems like California girls especially, because, like you said, Kim Kardashian, it's, and yourself, obviously, and, it's definitely, like you said, it's totally relatable with the Shelley Long's character, but I love when the parents are dropping them all off, the different types of parents there are, when they're initially dropping them off at the initial meeting that Shelley Long's supposed to go to. You got one like poet or writer or something lady who's getting advice from her daughter of what to say here.
You got the romance novelist and like the dictator,
right?
The high-powered attorney and the film director and like down on his like actor. Like you got a little bit of everything. It's just the most like stereotypical, what could we throw into Beverly Hills that would indicate lots of wealth and status, and they hit everything.
So I mean, yeah, you have so many, this culmination of Beverly Hills parents, and it's what I'm trying to think when Fresh Prince of Bel Air came out, because it kind of seems like, you know, they might have drew inspiration from this a little, just because, you have someone from the city coming into this, area, and it's just like, wow, you guys are so pompous, and all all this. But I don't know if
That's
they.
the thing. I feel like in the 80s, we were kind of in this sort of, and having not really lived through the 80s, I'm seeing it from a historical lens. I was born in the 90s. But I think there was definitely this balance between like lifestyles of the rich and famous and like, oh, people want to be that. And also like, but that's so much, there's so much snark material. Like I can imagine if lifestyles of the rich and famous were on today, there would be snark blogs devoted to what people saw,
Oh,
like McMansions. Like I'm almost sorry we never got a reboot just for the snark blog. So
right.
I think that the closest we came to a snark blog in the 80s was writing a film that sort of satirized that population. And this film definitely did. But like with surprisingly realistic results in some cases. Now, admittedly, my Girl Scout troop did not have those kind of girls. I mean, everyone's family had various levels of, I mean, we definitely didn't only have wealthy girls in our troop, but we also definitely didn't do things like camp at the Beverly Hills Hotel. So
Yeah.
a bit exaggerated, but I can also see where that totally could have been a Girl Scout troop here at that time. Like I can
Yeah.
totally see it.
Yeah, I mean, it's a movie. You gotta exaggerate it and
Oh
make
yeah.
it, more, more outlandish and everything. And because you have, and I like how they make, it not about, like, there's a lesson here in this movie. Even, it could be just a silly '80s movie, but there is a lesson. They come to the point where they have to sell the Wilderness Girls cookies, not the other ones cookies. They have to sell the cookies, and the parents are just like, all right, we'll just buy a bunch. And then Shelly's like, no, because they need to learn the sense of community, and the sense of, the sense of earning it for yourself, and all that. So I appreciated that about this movie. If there's one movie about character development, as much as I think that phrase is oversaid and everything, but and I use it a lot now, even though I think it's oversaid. But it's definitely a movie about character development, because I mean, it's you got Shelley Long, who's spending this money like crazy, and just living that pompous lifestyle, and then she goes from to the Wilderness Scouts girls, I mean the Wilderness Troop, I mean the girl troop. So yeah, I appreciate the fact that there is a lesson in this movie, and it's not just they don't just brush over it or anything.
Oh, totally. And I
Yeah.
think the truly humanizing thing about her character from the beginning, and it really develops as we get to know the other girls in the troop, is how much she cares initially about her daughter. And then as we see her interact with the other girls, how much they matter to her. Like there's that one scene where Chica's parents leave her alone on her birthday. And
Yep.
Chica's, the sort of reserved, sort of snobby girl who doesn't, she acts like she doesn't care about anything. And of course, she comes to Phyllis in tears because her parents left her alone on her birthday, and Phyllis improvises a little party. And I mean, you see how this woman just wants these girls to have a good experience. And I think that is like the humanizing factor. Even if you're like, oh, I can't stand this woman and her crazy shopping habits and her whatever, you cannot deny that she puts in the time as a caring person. And I think that's one of those admirable traits that then pushes her. I won't say character development. I'll say storyline.
Thank you.
It takes her from just being a shopaholic to being the head of a very quirky little wilderness girls troop. It's
Yeah,
that.
definitely. Yeah, that part, and even the scene when the girl didn't have the 750 or whatever, for something. Again, I've only seen it once. She had like it was only, I think, $7.50, not $750. She didn't have 750, and she runs off, and she's all embarrassed about it, and Shelley Long goes after her. She's and it's kind of comical when she's going after her. I forget it. Well, she's shouting something, but it just, I don't know, the way she's doing it is just funny. Shelley Long, I think, is definitely a underrated, comedic actress. I feel like she kind of fell under the radar almost with famous comedic actresses, or female actors. It's just because I think she's just outstanding in this movie.
Oh, I adore Shelley Long. I think she was
Yeah.
wonderful in Cheers. I think she brought a human side to Diane that was incredible. And she
Yeah.
was in this. And then I'll tell you clearly, Betty Thomas also noticed that, because Betty Thomas directed the Brady Bunch movie a few years later and cast her as Carol Brady.
Ah.
I mean, I just think she really has and I'm saying has because she still probably does have an exceptional comedic gift. And I'm glad that she wound up then getting that role in the Brady Bunch movie, because I could talk about that movie for another day and a half, because
Yeah.
that's another great movie in this sort of snark vein. And no, Betty Thomas clearly recognized it after working with her on this, and then brought her into that.
That's great. Yeah, yeah, she was recognized, and I mean, maybe it's just me, and I just don't. Maybe I just don't think of her that way, But yeah, I mean, it was great to see her, and do so great in this film from 1989 that I've never seen until now.
Yeah, no, I don't think you're wrong
um,
though. I think that there is definitely, I think right now there is a moment where we're talking a lot about actresses who haven't necessarily gotten their fair shake, whether it's that society has treated them poorly or they just weren't quite given the breaks because of like a misunderstanding. I think, and obviously this is me speaking from a very outside perspective, I think Shelley Long fell into sort of, people assumed she was a diva or that she wanted something special when she left Cheers, and used that against her and as an excuse to not hire her, when in actuality choosing to leave a show is not really, I mean, people do
right.
it all the time. So I think that it was an unfortunate situation, and a sense that I think people felt like maybe she shouldn't have left. But at the same time, I think that part of what made Cheers last so long is that they had this reset of the story. So if
Right.
you want some of the later iconic Cheers episodes, you had to have that happen. And to hold it against someone professionally is, in my opinion, absurd.
Yeah. Well, and especially, I mean, that time though I think it's absurd too, because I mean, at that time it seems like to go to TV was a downgrade, and to go to movies was the thing to do. Whereas now it's like kind of on a it's a level playing field almost. Like you'll have huge actors, do a TV show now, whereas in the past you wouldn't see a movie actor go to TV. So yeah, that's definitely interesting. That it was like that. That it's like what is she doing? It's like isn't that what you're supposed to do? Go from TV to movies? But yeah, it's crazy how TV has changed. That's for sure.
For the better, absolutely.
Yeah. Oh.
And I think it's, I mean, like, I think back to my grandfather, like we were talking about him earlier. I mean, when he was a TV writer, it was like theater was the high art, and then film was the acceptable art, and then TV was like, oh, you're a joke writer on TV.
Yeah.
But they were so much more than that. They shaped culture in a way that the theater and film people could not, because it was very easy to get a TV in your home. And
Right.
when we think about what really shaped American popular culture in the later part of the 20th century, it was television. It was Mary Tyler Moore. It was All in the Family. It was, frankly, everything Norman Lear did. That's what Seinfeld. I mean, what shaped
Yeah.
our culture, and I can even call Cheers into this. What shaped our culture was what was on TV screens. So to have treated it like the ugly stepchild for that long was a huge oversight on the part of society. And I'm really grateful that we've moved past that and acknowledged the power that TV has and the ability it has had to unite our culture for the last like 70 years.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And yeah, I mean and seems like that's what we're going to be watching things on for a long time now. So, movies are coming out, and you can just watch it right in the comfort of your own home. So it's like, it's yeah. And it's such a, not to go on a TV tangent, but it's just such a, you know, better form of storytelling, not better form, but it's just you can get into more depth, you can get into, more character development. No, you get into more story, you can get into more, you just get into more with the TV structure, because it's multiple hours rather than just 2 hour drama, 3 hour drama, something like that. So but it, yeah. Yeah.
And I think it's great that it's not seen as a step back for actors or writers too, because you wind up getting some really fascinating material out of people who would in a previous generation have thought that it was beneath them. And I think that there is something to be said. Like, for example, I recently read an article that's about 11 or 12 years old about a man who was executed potentially wrongfully in Texas, and the case to try to get him exonerated before he was ultimately executed. And I found out that the article was turned into a movie. And I was thinking, I feel like this had a lot more than 2 hours worth of material. Like, you could have a whole episode on the screw ups at the trial alone. Like, there's a mini series waiting to happen here.
Yeah.
I just think that we have to stop acting like, well, if you put it on a movie screen, it's special. If you put it on a TV screen, it's for everyone. It's like, no, there are just many different ways to approach a story, and to approach whether you need hours and hours and hours or years of time to really get your story across, or whether you can do it in like a 2 hour, hour and a half format. And to act like one is superior to the other is just short-sighted.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, definitely. And yeah, I'm glad it seems like Hollywood has gotten past that point. So, and let's keep it that way, folks. Let's keep it that way. What are your thoughts on Phyllis and Craig T. Nelson's character getting back together at the end? What are your thoughts on that? Someone who has seen this 100 times.
Okay, so most of my life, I was like, that's just how it's supposed to end, happily ever after in love. But as I've gotten older, I don't necessarily think it was I get why for the story it was the right move. I don't necessarily think it was the right move for her. And I think that looking at it from a 21st century perspective, honestly, he did some very jerky things. Like when he basically sprung the whole custody battle on her, and like they clearly were not a good match. So I feel like from an 80s perspective, that's how the story had to end. From a 2010s perspective, a big part of the story would be Phyllis reclaiming her independence and acknowledging that she didn't need this guy who clearly didn't give her the respect she deserved. Right. So that's how I feel about that.
Yeah, because I guess I'm looking at it like you said with 2021 eyes. So it's just like, wow, why is she giving this guy another chance? But I think 89 was about the the happy ending. Bringing the family back together and everything. And I like how he even mentions it's it's better to be happily divorced than happily married. Oprah said that even. It brings up Oprah, shows the sign of the times. Then Oprah said it. So you as a woman should know that's like gold right there. Those are golden words coming from her. So yeah, I mean, it's did you do any sort of jamboree like they do in this movie at the end?
No. My troop mostly did like our little craft or things and like those kind of activities. We sold our cookies and we used our cookie money to go to Disneyland.
Ooh.
Yes, so not the Beverly Hills Hotel, but Disneyland. And we had a lot of fun. We learned a lot. I'm a third generation Girl Scout. My mom and grandmother were both Girl Scouts too. And so it's something that's always been very important to my family. And I just didn't realize until I was older at the 25th anniversary, my sister and I looked at each other. We said, wait, they're talking about our troop. Wait, we were in Troop Beverly Hills. So it took on a new meaning when we heard that. But we never had any of the jamborees. We didn't even go camping as Girl Scouts. I don't think that I loved our troop leader. I cannot see her camping. Or if she were to go camping, she would have been the only one happy camping because it would not have gone well.
So in real life, you got Beverly Hills, California was more pompous than the movie was in regards to that aspect. I mean, that's, I'm just,
You're not entirely wrong. No,
right.
I mean, I can't imagine. I think back on my Girl Scout troop, and I can't imagine anyone in that troop going camping. I mean, maybe now there are a couple girls who'd be like, "Oh yeah, I'd do that," but I can't imagine
it. Yeah. Oh, that's great. But yeah. Again, so many lies. We once did an episode on best comedy villains. Obviously, I hadn't seen that movie when we did this, but I mean, Betty Thomas, Velda. I think she should be on a short list somewhere for comedy villains. Because she's easy to hate. She's and she's got funny lines and everything. It's and she has no redeemable qualities. She doesn't learn any sort of lesson. Speaking of CD, we'll call it CD. Speaking of that, she just stays a evil witch till the end, it seems.
And she gets worse and worse because more and more people have learned to love Phyllis, and her vendetta against Phyllis just gets deeper and deeper.
Right.
It's almost like, I just think Betty Thomas shines in that role because she just clearly was having the time of her life.
Yeah.
Like a character who had nothing good going for her. And there's one scene even that I always think is, and I say this as an animal lover, I think it's a truly hilarious scene where she accidentally, she shoots her gun off. She shoots a bird. And she's like, oh, well, okay. Or then there's another one where there's like a possum or a skunk or something out there. She shoots it, next day it's her hat. I mean, like I said, I'm an animal lover. I don't condone violence against animals. Right. The way it suits Velda's character is just so funny.
Yeah. She picks up the skunk and she's like, because I think the skunk is what chased the Shelley Long's tribe or group out of
the lead, right?
Yeah, and she like picks it up and says, "You'll pay for this." And I'm like, "Wait, how is she gonna pay for this?" And then next scene you see her. Yeah, right. It's like, oh, okay. Well, there you have it. But yeah, I mean, her obviously her meanness kind of carries on to her daughter, even, who is like, none of the mom stuff. She kept telling to her daughter, none of the mom stuff. And the daughter's like, "Oh, sorry, sir." Calls her sir. They basically leave her with a broken ankle, and it's just like, man, you get what you put out there, it's, what do you expect her to do?
Her unhappy ending. She for sure, when the red feathers abandoned her, I was like, this is exactly what you taught them to do.
Yep. Exactly.
It happened to you, but this is exactly what you taught them to do.
Right, exactly. Yeah, they're learning by your example, Missy. I mean, that's why your assistant, Annie, I think her name Annie, her assistant, yeah. Annie, yeah, that she was, that you had spy on Shelley Long and the Wilderness Girls, and she even turned on you because you catch more flies with honey than vinegar.
Oh, yeah, he treated her like a person, and actually gave her a dose of confidence and joy. And I mean, all the way down to like Audra Lindley playing the head of the like Wilderness Girls, I guess like Southern California branch, who's like, oh, Velda, done with her, send her off to the Pick and Save where she can start calling for yarn sales in aisle 5 or whatever. I mean, really, there's a lot of poetic justice in that ending.
Right, exactly. Yeah. Yeah, in the Kmart with the blue light savings and all that. Yeah, that was
so perfect too. I just love that.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, I'm so glad you had me watch this movie. Again, I like seeing I say new movie, but it's been out for 31 years, 32 years. And it's was there anything else you wanted to say about the movie? Did we miss anything? Any lines you wanted to say that we blew over?
I just have to say though, as someone who grew up in Beverly Hills, I feel like it's a privilege to have media about this community because Beverly Hills gets a really weird reputation. It's not the community people think it is from the outside. We have a decent size. We have 10% of our residents living below the poverty line. We have a huge percentage of people who live here in apartments, specifically to send their children to Beverly Hills schools. We have this divide between the wealthy, I mean, like we were talking about class divide and like wealth gaps. We have the wealthiest of the wealthy and then some very poor people who have the unfortunate thing of having to say, yes, I need services and my zip code is 90210. So having this kind of like moment captured that isn't just about like, Beverly Hills, it's like, it feels like a really, like someone actually took a camera and walked around the city. And I feel like this film, Clueless, the Beverly Hillbillies, really give us that time capsule feel because the Beverly Hills of today is so different. And seeing what Beverly Hills was like then is an important part of history. I mean, that's true of any. I just feel like I live in one that gets a reputation that could sometimes be corrected. And I will tell you another thing. This morning, in honor of our little chat, I walked over to Phyllis Neffler's house, which is still standing. It is painted white because it's not the 80s anymore. And I also walked by the hill area where she chases after Emily, and Emily gets stopped by her friend because I was like, I got to do that in honor. And I just think it's so cool that no matter how much has changed, some of that stuff is never going anywhere. And that house is still there. That hill is still there. So it's a love letter. As much as it's a satire, it's a love letter to this city. And for me, as someone who grew up here, I enjoy seeing that.
Yeah, no, and it makes sense why you picked it now. I totally get it. And yeah, like you said, it's it doesn't kind of paints the picture as to, that, it's not necessarily the lifestyle you should be living that she was living at the beginning, and she even learns that, and it's she has a better relationship with her daughter and ends up with her conniving ex-husband, even as much as you would like to disagree with it, but yeah, it's but yeah, no, I'm so glad I have experienced this movie now I when my daughter gets a little bit older, I want to show her it, so thank you for that. So
this is a great movie to talk about.
Yeah, absolutely, definitely. Now, where can people get updates on you? Where do you have social media that people can find you on and all that jazz?
I sure do, and all that. I have my Instagram, which is @thevictoriagordon, and my website is www.thevictoriagordon.com. In either of those places, you can find my work, you can find upcoming projects, you can find photos. More than you want to know about me, you can contact me. I always respond, so please feel free to reach out. And that's basically where I am online, is the Victoria Gordon.
There you go. Well, thanks so much for chatting with me today.
Thanks, this was a blast.
Well, there you have it. Troop Beverly Hills with Victoria Gordon. Hope you enjoyed it. I enjoyed it myself. Glad I got a chance to finally watch a 32-year-old film. It was great. Again, like I said in the episode, I like watching movies I've never seen before, discovering new movies, even if it's a cheesy 80s movie. So hope you guys enjoyed it. Make sure you're following us on Twitter at BlockbusterCast. You can follow our Instagram at Blockbuster Mentality. That's where you're going to get all the updates on when new episodes come out. And everything like that. So another surprise we had this week was Greg Fitzsimmons. He shouted us out on his show. He was talking to Stephen Tobolowsky, who was also a guest on this show. So it's always great getting that free advertisement. Thanks, Greg. No, it's always great when guests get together. I was a bit of a matchmaker there. I'm not gonna lie, but what are you gonna do? But all right, folks. Well, that next week we have another guest, another movie. You'll see it. Make sure you're following us on Twitter and Instagram. That's where you'll find out. And if you're subscribed, you'll get the alert when the episode drops. I think it's a Tuesday show now. Tuesdays. I think that's what we're going for. So, all right, folks. Well, that's it for me. For Victoria, I'm Ben. And as always, grab some popcorn, grab some snacks. We'll catch you guys at the movies.